And now for the topic that everyone's been craving, halftone bows. These are a few not all of them are prominent manufacturers. These are a few of the more accessible halftone bows you'll find. All except for two of these came off of instruments, and then two of them were OEM parts from manufacturers, both of whom are no longer around, which makes it kind of interesting. This one actually here is, I'm going to tell you what these are off of, just because it doesn't really matter. I don't think anyone's going to get too bothered that I'm critiquing their halftone bows. So this one is a halftone bow that came from the Hayes company, which was a company in Chicago. Pretty sure it has something to do with Shoki now, with it's owned by the same person or something, but they used to make, tons of these things. So back, 20, 30 years ago, everyone was using Hayes halftone bows, just because halftone bows are difficult to make, and when you can buy them, it's a tricky thing, because I like, my goal for my business is to make parts for more and more people. For me though, halftone bows are not a part that I don't think I could ever sell them, because for the amount of overkill that I'm going to make my halftone bows, you can't charge enough for them. From the I think these were like $2 a piece from them, and this one here is from Votal Tool Company, which is just to repair parts. This one, I'm actually not sure where it's from. It measures like a cancel part. It looks like a cancel part. I haven't checked on Votal if these are still available since cancel is closed. It's screaming like a cancel part to me, but it might be Chinese. It might be, Consumer or something. I doubt it's Consumer. My money's on cancel, which it's similar to theirs. This one has an A on it. I think this came off an Atkinson horn, so that might also be cancel. I'm not sure where Markets is. It measures like a cancel as well. This measures like the other cancels. This one's a little different, so I think it's actually a little different. This one here came off of an Olds Ambassador. This is a really interesting crook. And then this one here came off of a Yamaha, because the amount of time that it takes to make a halftone bow properly, and there's a really interesting difference in processes to make them. It's just so ridiculous. Like, start to finish, if I were just making one, I'm pretty sure it would take me an hour. And that's pretty conservative on that estimate. There's a lot of steps to getting the wall thicknesses right, and I still haven't done it perfectly yet. I'm still working on that. I have one here I can show you that's just about the closest, and now that I've done this one, I know I can do it. But first, we're gonna measure these. This was for a trumpet. So it has a 460 bore, I believe. Should be 460. Yeah. Maybe a little 462-ish. So what we're going to do here, let me make sure it's coming out right. So we are going to measure a few dimensions. We're going to measure the wall thicknesses. We're not doing bore, we're not doing OD, we're doing wall thickness. And we're going to measure the displacement of wall thickness between this wall and this wall, because that's what's important. So we're going to measure this outside wall and this inside wall, because when these were made, I'm not sure exactly how they did them, but if they, filled them with lead and then kinked them or whatever, shoved them in a die, they're going to be displacing these wall thickness. So one wall is going to be disproportionately thinner than the other, and it's pretty obviously the outside wall is going to be, because when you're bending a tube, bending it in this way, you're upsetting material into the inside of the crook. And you can bend tubing without doing that, but this particular one and most halftone bows do that. So we're going to measure the outside here just with calipers, and we're doing relative measurements here, so calipers aren't going to be perfect, but we're going to really control how hard how we're using the calipers. So this one on the outside is measured about 018, 0175. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good measurement. And on the inside, 025, I would say about 025. Over here it's a little thicker. 026. There's a slight lean to the right. Yeah, so on the inside we're measuring 025 on the wall thickness. So that means that, so take the bore of 460-ish. So this is the bore, right? When this part was balled out, that bore, instead of being dead center between the walls, is a little bit that way, if that visual makes any sense. The ball was pushed through crooked because the wall thicknesses were crooked after being bent. So that's that one. That one's pretty bad. Let's look at one that's not that bad, but still kind of bad. So this is the olds. I'm not sure how they were doing these. I bet they were shoving them through dies with a press. So just get a good measure here. 019, 0195, 020. So that's what it should be. So I'm just trying to use the same pressure. 020, because if you don't know, the Effield's bore and OD sizes was 468 bore, 508 outer dimension. I can't see if that actually is. And this one's a little big. Their die was starting to wear out when they made this one. Or tubes out around. Yeah, so you can see, it's actually kind of cool looking at dies. This way, which is perpendicular to the center line of the die, it's going to be perfect because they used a 508 ball end mill. And then this way, if that die wasn't closed enough, or if it was starting to wear out, this is telling me that they were using an oversized wall thickness of tubing to get that size so that the OD was put out wrong. So anyways, yeah, this one's depending on where you hold it or how. Yeah, I'm gonna say 019, 020, and the inside 023. And yeah, so this is pretty good. I've seen a lot worse. There's a little bit of solder there. That's what I'm getting the 025 off of. So I mean, it's maybe, you know, 1 under on one side and max 3 over. So that's pretty good. I mean, and that really is congruent with all the other things we've seen from the Effield's company. They were among the best American manufacturers. And this is the most surprising one for me, is this is the Yamaha crook. So we're going to do the outside. This one's shorter, so it's going to be difficult to get a good one. So yeah. 015, 0145, 014.5, 015. And on the inside, 018. Over there, yeah, 018, 019-ish. This was pretty shocking to me because usually Yamaha is spot on with everything. This is an older crook, maybe 10 years old or something. So maybe they've gotten better, but I would think that Yamaha, with all the R&D they put in this is something that they would have figured out, which kind of shows you how difficult. Now it's measuring 020, 019. Kind of shows you how difficult it is to make a good halftone bow. And this is the one from Vota. This one's pretty bad. This is like some cancel type stuff. I mean, 028 on the inside, 017 on the outside. I had one from Cancel once, and I know it's from Cancel because I got it out of there when they closed with all the tooling I got. I know it's from Cancel. I'm measuring it, and it was it's funny because it was in the die. It was in this die, actually. I don't know where it is. I need to find it. It was so funny. It was in this die. It was their sample crook. It was marked sample. And when I measured the outside here, it was 4.5 thousandths of an inch thick. Like, if you don't understand how thin, like how small that is, it was the thickness of a human hair on this outside radius. And it was like, it had to be like 030 in here. It was insane. But yeah, that shows you, you know, that's Cancel. Some of their stuff was crazy good. Some of it was less than great. I didn't do this one. This one, I think, is from Cancel. Like I said, I'm pretty sure this is an Atkinson. So it's off an Atkinson. So it's 012 on the outside. 020 on the inside, so that checks out. Because, 4/1000ths of the wall thickness was displaced from over here to over here. So that means that cancel was doing, if this is indeed from cancel. Let me actually check the span. Yeah, this is a cancel crook, I can tell you that for sure. Don't hold it against me if I'm wrong. But so when I've been learning to do these, I have some examples of the fail. So the way that a lot of people do them is they crack them, and they kink them, and they shove them in there, and then half of them fail, half of them don't. And then there's also, I think Johannes Fink has a hydraulic bender that he just puts a tube unfilled in, and it gets the bend good enough to where it just goes into a die after one round of bending, which is pretty cool. But I would be hesitant to say that's the way to go. I'd have to measure them. I would guess, unless he's, pulling some Fink magic, that they are displaced on the wall thickness. Yeah, you can do that. You can, I think probably what Yamaha does, I know they do this for the tuba bows and stuff like that, they flatten the tube essentially on the middle, and they have a little, they oval the tube, and then they bend it tighter radii that way, and it holds up a little better. I mean, obviously, it still displaces a little bit, but the coolest way to do this, but also the most time-consuming way to do this, is what I've been calling die drawing. I certainly didn't come up with this. I haven't really seen anyone do it, and they share it. That's kind of not a thing that people do, but it's a pretty obvious way to do it. This is a little overkill on some of the other stuff I did. So this is my halftone die. This came from Cancel. It's a really nice die. They did a really good job. I couldn't do anything close to this good right now. So you take it, and I'm going to put this in a press. Right now I'm using my milling machine because it really doesn't take that much force. And you take a straight tube, and to help it a little bit to get started, you cut an angle onto the tube, and then you put it into the die, put the angle along the outside of the radius, and then you just shove it through. But the trick is, and all of these mistakes, there's a lot of finesse to shoving it through. So these are different. I think this is the first one I messed up. So you can see it's got a pretty mean crease in there. And I tried to ball it out, and the crease just completely folded over, and my ball, can't see, but there you go. There's a ball stuck in there. I'll get that out later. This one also folded over, but after a little bit. So that one I was getting excited. You can actually see it taking the shape of the die pretty well. I mean, that's proof of concept right there, right? It made it maybe, 3/8 of the way or so. So that one is got me pretty happy. This one, same kind of deal, it got farther. This one almost got 90 degrees perpendicular to the bend before it folded over. And all of these, all I was doing was just pressing them, annealing them, pressing them, maybe, an 1/8 inch or maybe even a 1/16 of an inch depth every press. And once I get it down, I can actually set stops and then adjust the stops between batches. But so that's all it was. And if you tried to go any more, you're gonna have that happen where it folds in like that. But it wasn't until this last one I did I realized what I actually really needed to do, and it sucks because it's super time consuming. But from the results I'm measuring here, so this is my latest fail, and this one failed because I had the tube annealed too high up. So this is it failed right outside of the die, just outside of the die, because it was too soft up here. So when I was putting pressure, all the pressure was getting released out here instead of down here, which is where I want it. Actually, not down here. I want it to go in right where it starts to bend. That's where I want it to be annealed. I'm pretty sure. This one's awesome, though. So before it failed, I was maybe 4 or 5 rounds of annealing, because you press it a little bit, anneal it, in a specific spot. I think I'm going to set up an induction annealing thing for these. And then you press it again, anneal it, press it again, press it again, anneal it. This one, I think it was 3, 4, or 5 parts steps. And you can, the difference here is after every step, I balled it out. And I don't have any, like, bore I'm shooting for is 468. I don't have any, like, 460 balls or anything right now. I'm going to get some, because I think the best way to do it would be to press it, ball it out with 460, chase it with 437.5, all the way through until I get around. All I need is to get about there. All the way around with 460, so that'll leave the OD a little undersized, because I'm going with absolute wall thickness here, so I'm using 016 wall stuff, because I can hold that tolerance. I might overdraw like half a thousandths or something just for shits and giggles, but... So, and then I'm going to ball out all the 460, and then once I have the finished crook at 460, I'm just going to anneal the whole thing, put it in the die, and ball it out conventionally to 468. And I think that will get me a really consistent draw. But I'm just going to show the measurement here, so you can see I'm about just under halfway. One more round, and I would have gotten halfway around. Okay, let's get a quick measure. So, like before, I'm going to measure the outside and the inside. So, the outside... We'll get around, there we go. It's not going anymore, so I'm at the lowest spot now. It's a 1.6. Inside. It depends on where you go. There we go. 0155, 015. Tiny bit under. It depends. Calipers aren't the best for this. I have these like a tube micrometer. This angle's a lot harder to measure than the outside, but this isn't gonna go because it needs a flat. On the outside to go, we can check it with this. Right on that edge. Yeah, you can see that. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. There's the 15th thou line. We're 1 over 15th thou. Sorry, we're 1 and looks like, you know, 2/10. I don't have tenths read on it here, but that's 2/10. So obviously we're measuring on a curve, so it's not perfect, but pretty close. So yeah, all I need to do is more rounds, obviously, 3 times as many rounds as I did, which maybe will equal 15 or 20 steps, and just control my annealing better on this shaft portion, because I'm pretty sure the way this process works, you don't want to anneal this front edge, because once this front edge is moved, that's not what's moving anymore. All you're doing is moving the right before the section. If you were to just take a section size of, you know, a 1/2 inch diameter, but just, you know, 25 thousandths or so. Actually, in this case, it would be, you know, 1/8 of an inch long, just that, like a donut out of here. That's all that's moving at one time, if that makes sense. We're just arcing it inside the die. So that's really all that needs to be annealed, is a portion right here, and then this should move. And that should stop from causing odd, you know, upsetting of the thickness in these walls. And, you know, the question comes into play is this really worth it? And, you know, I guess I could give you some BS, you know, I make horns acoustical-ish, you know, reason, but to be honest, I'm not an acoustician, and even acousticians, when it comes to brass instruments, they're kind of like oddly vague about everything, because they don't want to say anything that'll you'll take to heart. And all the papers I've tried to read on all this stuff, it's kind of useless information when it comes to actually making an instrument. But I operate on the idea that if I make all my dimensions, you know, quote unquote perfect, so perfect to what makes sense, it makes sense to me that a tube, no matter what size bend, like this tube, or if it's, you know, a large open bend like this main tuning side here, this is easy to make with an even wall thickness. People still don't, but for me at least, it's easy to figure out how to make these with an equal wall thickness. It shouldn't matter the radii of the, or the dimension of the span. It should not matter. That should not have any bearing on the wall thickness distribution. I think it should be perfect, because a straight section of tubing is going to be perfect. So why not try to make this? There's only improvements that can come from this, unless I'm wrong, and that's why, you know, CF Schmidt horns have bad high B flats, because they have perfect halftone bows. But I'd reckon it's the opposite. So thanks for listening to my rant about halftone bows. I'm sure the two of you that watch this video will very much enjoy yourselves.